Alrighty. Good morning, everybody. Uh, no, it's afternoon, but in this class, we're gonna say good morning every day because, first of all, this class is a class of ideas. Uh, it's open to everybody, open lecture. I want to make that noticed. I want you guys to challenge my ideas, question anything, any clarifications. I'm here to clarify. Um, Another thing I want to state is I am a student. I make mistakes. I am not a professor. I am not a professional. It's my first time um, going into this, and it's just information that I want to share with all of you guys and all of that. So to start us off, I want to propose two realities to you guys. Right. So you can see.
Yeah, I can see.
Okay. Um. So we have our first reality, right? We have gods, right? And those gods are controlled by greater forces, such as fate, right? And then we have fortune, right? But those fortunes and fate are controlled by bigger things, such as envy, right? Or pride, right? Primordial forces, right? So what we know this as polytheism, right? Ugly writing, right? And then we have this other reality, our second reality, where this are synapses, right? And these synapses are created by our nature and our nurture, right? And these things fire our synapses and they create memories or our identity and who we are, right? They create a self, right? This is backed up by neuroscience, obviously, right? But it also creates this idea of individualism, which we see in monotheism, right? Monotheism being the belief of one God, one superior being, right? To me, or actually, we only have one participant in this class today, so thank you for you to being here.
Of course.
Also, I do not plan to reveal the names of students here, so we're keeping everything anonymous. Only you will soon see me, all right? But to you, I say, which one do you believe is the most realistic? It's not a trick question. Like, just which one
Realistic?
makes more sense to you?
For me, the one that makes most sense is monotheism.
This one, number two.
Yeah, the
Okay,
right side.
right. So obviously, yeah, this is the one you're taught, right? Neuroscience, Christianity, beliefs really back this up. Polytheism is like believed to be thing of the past, thing of the Greeks, right? It's mythology in a sense, right? But what we're gonna see is that this one makes more sense in the world that we live in than this one, right? Because the problem with this one is that it teaches individualism, right? And the problem with individualism is that you don't believe that there's extra forces out there that are impacting your life. You believe that you are the root of all your problems, but that's not really how it is, right? And that brings us to a Western philosopher named Immanuel. Oh, all right, named Immanuel Kant, right? So he was great philosopher. He kind of showed us why no one can really understand reality, like the truth aspects of reality, right? So we have the phenomena, and once again, I may have some misspellings, so uh, try to bear with me. My first time giving a lecture, right? And then we have our phenomena, right? So, ooh, that locate has a glare to it. I'm just gonna try to fix that. you think you could get the other light? Oh, hold on. Quick little interruption. We're gonna try to fix the light. Turn it off. No, turn both of them off. It's just the natural lighting that's giving it the glare.
Yeah.
That's fine. We're gonna have to work with it. Just
Yeah.
turn one on.
All right.
Okay. Right. So this is the phenomena, right? We can never understand this. This is objective truth. Right? We can't understand truth as it is. So an example we would say is we call this a smart board, right? We as a society, as a class, as people decided to call this a smart board, but in reality it's just atoms, it's just particles, right? We could have called it anything else. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Right? So these senses, right? What makes sense to us is what makes us understand the phenomena and what helps us tie creating our phenomena, right? So our phenomena is the explanation of our world, of our own reality, right? So obviously everyone's gonna say, oh, that's a chair, right?
Mm-hmm.
But your phenomena makes you say that it's a chair. And another, like Spanish, you're gonna say es una silla, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the senses, whatever is being described to you and whatever you have developed since a child makes you understand the phenomena, right?
Mm-hmm.
So whatever whoever claims what I'm trying to get at is whoever claims to say they have the truth is is lying because they can only explain the phenomena. They can never explain the phenomena. So what I'm trying to get at is when I'm explaining to you these ideas and these things that we're going to talk about within this class is don't take it as I am saying the literal truth because even I don't know if these are the truths, right? But take it as an explanation, as an idea, as something that maybe can spark you to help better understand the world, right? Okay. Ooh, can you get the door? No?
I got baited.
Okay. Um, we're gonna take a quick little break. I have to take a phone call. Okay. Sorry about that. I'm gonna just be honest with you guys because I wanted to be like no edits. Also, I wanted it to be raw footage. I called because I'm gonna get food right now in a bit. But yeah, going back to where we're talking about, we just finished with Immanuel Kant, and now we're thinking about Rene Desecrates. We're going into another philosopher. Oh, thank you. Yes, sir. Whatever. Okay, Desecrate. So what's important for him is, I think, therefore I am. Does that make? Do you know? Are you familiar with that term?
I'm familiar.
Yeah, right. You're familiar. Hold on, let me. Or I don't want. Is it connected all
There
the way
might be
back?
a lock on it. I don't know.
Hold on. Okay. Um, blue might not be the best option. Okay.
I think black maybe,
Right.
or maybe it's just the background.
That too. It's because it was supposed to be white text, but it doesn't let me. Or does Canva?
She might not be able to edit because it's not hers.
Hold on. Hmm.
Whoa.
Yo, that's tough. Okay. The more you know.
There you
There you
go.
go. Okay. Let's go. We're
That's what this
working
club
now.
is about, learning.
We're working. Yes, bro. We're learning while we're learning. Okay. That's actually so much better. Okay. So I think I should probably make this smaller. This one, right? Okay. I think, therefore I am. Why does it write like that? Why are we writing like that? Why? Can I make it skinnier? Or hold it down? No. Okay, whatever. That's whack. Okay, so I think therefore I am. So people obviously like no duh, like you think you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not here to tell you like to prove it, right? I'm here to tell you why he wanted to prove it, right? So um we're gonna also in the next units go over hallucinations and why dreams happen and stuff like that, right? But first, this is a major important as to like why illusions happen and why hallucinations happen, right? So we have, let's say, a demon, right? This is our story. It's a demon, right? And then this is you. He wants to put you under an illusion, right? So the demon represents the illusionist. That is right. And then this is the hallucinant, right? The person who's hallucinating. What? Thank you. Right. So Desecrates wanted to prove that this is not happening. We're actually individuals of our own free being. We have our own free will, right? And the way to interpret this in another sense is if you free will equals the ability to be or to exist, right? Not to be, because you can be but not have free will, right? So free will means to exist, right? If you don't have free will, you don't have the right to exist. You don't have the right to be out there, right? So in order to make sure that you have free will, you have to have the ability to think, right? Make sense so far?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. So what Rene Desecrates concluded is that doubt was the last thing you can have, right? So you can doubt everything, but that's the last thing they can't take away from you is this doubt because he doubted God, he doubted all his principles, and he came to the conclusion. He was like, "Yo, like I still have this ability to think no matter what you take away from me, I can still think. I am still a person. I am still a conscious in a sense. So everybody has a conscious. Everyone is aware. Everyone has the ability to think, right? But you can take this away. You can take away thinking, right? There's obviously we know limitations within books. There's rhetoric. There's systems, right? But one thing they'll never make you not do is not doubt, right? Right now, there's a lot of doubt within our government, within religion, and we see a lot of doubt increasing, right? So that's why it's important to know that if we stop doubting our government, if we stop doubting the things that people are telling us are the truth, we're giving in to the illusion of the demon, and we lose the illusion game, and we lose our free will, right? Okay, so that has to do with our or actually I could go to the next one, right? That has to do with our first unit, unit one, of why we have ideas. Okay, right. Now unit one it wasn't supposed to be that long. It's just like kind of more of an introduction as to what's going on. But unit two is where things get more interesting. I know you guys can't see it there, but this is Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud is the father of psychoanalysis, right? So he really was, I guess, the first person to dive into the psyche and the human mind, and really try to understand it and see what was going on in there, right? Actually, before we get into him, I want to do two. I want to do another. Right. So we have the conscious, and then we have the unconscious. Okay. Um, as for the conscious, what would you describe it like? What would you put categorize as conscious?
Conscious, the ability to like recognize.
So recognition.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Awareness.
Awareness, yeah.
Awareness.
Being able to communicate, communication.
Okay. Okay. And now, as the unconscious, what would you say we would find in the unconscious?
I would say like blind-minded.
Blind-minded.
Yeah.
So blindness. Uh, ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Ignorance.
Um. Okay. I'm gonna just keep memories, right? And then what else do I have in here? And then dreams, thoughts, right? Dreams, thoughts. Okay. So obviously, we our consciousness is what we're aware of and what like we're perceiving and what we're seeing right now. But there's always this question as to what the unconscious is, right? There's always this big question, and neuroscience and scientists can't. They haven't found an answer to it, right? They don't know where our memories are actually stored. They don't know where our emotions are. Like they can tell you chemically what emotions do, and they can tell you what is going on within your brain, but they can't give a real definition as to where these things are stored, right? So that's again what we said. There's an issue with the monotheistic belief or the neuroscience belief. That's the problem is they can't describe what these unconscious ideas are being stored into. That's why I say the polytheistic is um, more understanding of our world, and we'll get into that later on into the units. But that's I got to give you guys context first, and then all right. Um, Now we can go to Sigmund Freud. Okay. Sigmund Freud, he is very controversial. Not controversial. He's he's quoted a lot within the psychological field. Um, he's very important. Uh, he's in a controversial in the sense that people don't necessarily agree with a lot what he says, especially the Oedipus complex, which I don't believe we're gonna have the time to get into, but maybe later, next class, right? So Sigmund Freud, he proposed two ideas: the iceberg theory, and we're gonna go into the id, the ego, and the superego as its own thing. But first, let's touch on the iceberg theory. Right? So the iceberg theory is right. Pretend this is an iceberg, right? And then you have the tip of the iceberg. Let's put that right, and then you have the middle of the iceberg, and then you have the deep sea level, right? Um, at the tip of the iceberg, we have thoughts and perception, right? These are things that a person is conscious of, right? We're conscious of our thoughts, we're conscious of our perception. The little voice in your head that is speaking to you, you're aware of that, right? This is the conscious level. And then underneath that, in the second level, we have the preconscious level, right? Right. In this level, we have stored knowledge. Oh my goodness, this thing doesn't want to write. And then we have also memories, right? So in order to remember, you need to forget. So everything that you forget and that occurs in your mind comes from the preconscious level. And then we have the unconscious level. This is everything the conscious does not know about. or everything the conscious has decided to suppress in order to protect um, the self, right? So here, this is where we have immoral thoughts, like thoughts that you don't want to think about. One immoral thought that's very famous is the immoral thought of wanting to hurt a child in the sense. Like if you ever, I guess, seen a kid and you're like, oh, how far can I kick the kid? Um, that's an immoral thought, right? It varies. Um, but also shameful experiences, right? These are experiences that we do not wish to talk about, that we suppress, right? So obviously, they're all defense mechanisms, right? This is what we see mostly down here in the unconscious level. It's defending you from knowledge that it doesn't want to show to your conscious level. And we'll get into defense mechanisms provided by Sigmund Freud later on when we go focus on development of child to adult, right? And then the next theory is the ego, the id, and the superego. Right. So we have, let me look at these real quick. Right. So we have the id. Oh, what is going on here? We have the ego, and then we have the superego. Sorry, I'm gonna just do SE. Okay. So let's start off with the id, right? The id is everyone's born with an id. Everyone, it's the it's the thing within you that tells you what you need in order to survive. So, for example, if every baby is born with an id, the baby cries because it's crying to its mom that it wants food, right? It doesn't care whether the mom is cooking or whether it doesn't concern itself with what's going on and what other people are doing. It's only focusing on what it needs, right? And then we start to develop the ego, and the ego starts to realize, yo, there's other realities, there's other consciousness, there's other sensors greater than mine, there's other people out there, right? And then the super ego, Freud believes for it to be developed at the age of 5, right? So the super ego is developed by our parents. It's technically, like in our sense, our god, and our true understanding of the connection between the feminine and the masculine. And once again, going into the next unit, unit 3, where we talk about from child to parent, we're gonna go more into how our parents are our first gods. Like our mom is our goddess and our dad is our god, and how they are the people who dictate and create our principles, our morals, our ethics. Right? They're the ones who show us what are the true connection between masculine and feminine, what it really is, right? Um, so one thing that I would like to show is, oh wait, no, we'll go into that later. But actually, this, what if, obviously we have these three different things, right? So we gotta identify one as who is in control of. Oh yes, you have a question.
So you said from ego to super ego, it's developed through our parents, right?
Yeah,
So let's say there's this child who didn't really have a close connection with their parents,
yeah,
and they didn't
correct,
have a person who they have a person who they would define as a parent
correct,
because they weren't close enough.
correct.
Does that really would that restrict them or limit them from fully developing a superego? Or are there some
No,
people
no, no, no.
that just
Okay.
have an ego?
So the superego is developed no matter what, right?
Mhm.
The superego is your morals, your ethics, your principles, what you believe, right? So, for example, let's say the kid is a foster kid, right?
Mhm.
He doesn't grow up with his parents. Let's say by the age of 3, right? To me, some people believe that 3-year-olds are not aware, but
Mm-hmm.
it's just like they are aware. Like I've seen it with my own life.
Mm-hmm.
3 3-year-olds show more awareness than what science believes that they show, right? Or what that most people tend to believe that 3-year-olds show, right? Um, so obviously there's going to be parental disconnect, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our parents, both parent figures are important within development of a child, right? And I'm not saying that there's other people that can't substitute, right? Obviously, if a parent is able to adopt the 3-year-old child, they're able to show the child how to really develop, right? I'm not saying
Mm-hmm.
that this child is not going to be developed, but what I am trying to say is, let's take this kid, right? Let's say he did grow up with his parents, right? Let's say his dad and his mom both fought a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
His understanding of the superego, the morals, the ethics, right? Because what we're further going to understand within these lectures is that, in my ideas and my principles, that God is just really our true understanding of the connection between masculine and feminine, right? So going back to the child, if the child knows that the dad and the mom fight a lot, this interconnection between him is his understanding that, oh yeah, his first understanding of God is that, oh, the masculine and the feminine are fighting, right? Obviously the kid can develop and be like, yo, that's not right, this isn't right, right? I'm not saying, but what I'm saying is, once you're a kid, or what Freud claimed is, once you're 5 years old, you develop this super ego that is portrayed based on your parental figures. So yes, depending on, like you said, depending on who the kid was raised by,
Mm-hmm.
like in that hypothetical that you're presenting, it just really depends. You know, they could create a super good ego for him, or they could create a horrible super ego, right? So it really just depends on how your parents develop your super ego. It's just conditioning,
Mm-hmm.
right? And uh, those questions, I know, like we can go further into that, but
Mm-hmm.
that's going into the next unit, and
Mm-hmm.
um, probably more of your questions that you have are probably going to be answered in the next unit.
Okay.
Um, right. So now, what if what if someone focuses too much on the superego, or what if someone focuses too much on the id, or what if someone focuses too much on the ego itself, right? So if someone focuses too much on the superego, it's like you create kind of like a mini Hitler in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
right? They believe they have a messiah message, in the sense they believe that whatever they're doing right now is for their superego, for their better moral code, for the better ethics, right? And I'm not saying that it's bad, right? You can obviously have a strive for a better, if you have good morals and good ethics and you want to push those, right? It seems good on paper, but you're only, not only are you causing harm into yourself because you're pushing for this message, that's the only thing that you care about. You're not focusing on your ego or your own id, right? But it's also, you create this blindness and this ignorance where your own message and your own truth is what reality is, and you're not open to criticism, right? But if there's too much focus on the id, you're too focused too much on pleasure, on physical pleasure. So this would be money, lust, different things. This is materialism in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
right? But if you're too focused on the ego, right, you're too focused on finding a connection on how to interconnect the id and the super ego, right? Obviously, the ego is our connection between these two things, right? But the ego's job is to make sure that the id is being satisfied enough, and make sure nothing is touching the super ego. So making sure this materialistic ideas and ideologies don't affect the super ego, right? So what it means by this is, like, most people want a new car, a new Ferrari, or new this, and that, right? That's when the id and the super ego are connecting, and there's no connection between the ego, because the ego is not saying, yo, this is not okay. We don't need these materialistic things, or we don't need this type of ideology. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now we go into Carl Jung. This is one of my favorite psychologists. Um, we're not gonna go. a lot into him because he has a lot, right? So we're just gonna go over a quick overview on his map of the psyche, right? So at the top we have the persona. I should probably I should probably get a different color for this one. I should try this. No, okay, it's not gonna look good on that. I'm gonna just go back to one of these. Okay. Right. So at the top we have the persona, and then we have the ego, personal conscious, the shadow, the anima or animus, the self, and then collective conscious. Okay. And that is it, right? So I don't know if you can see it, but do you see the mind? Do you see the? This is like the top of the head. If you were to put, do you see it? Okay. So the persona up here is the mask we put on. This is the presentation, the persona, the person we present ourselves as, right? And then we have the ego. The ego is everything that takes in information and outputs information. It's like the computer program, right? The personal conscious is your own consciousness, your own reality, your own ideas, your own
What you
unique
believe in?
experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like your own unique experience, right? And then we have the collective conscious. The collective conscious is the conscious or the unconscious that we share as a community, as a whole, like information that everybody knows, right? Like 2 plus 2 is equal to 1, right? Does that make sense? Like obviously you're not thinking about it right now, but it's stored in your head when you need it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But then you have information that you know yourself that I don't know. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Then we have the shadow. The shadow is things neglected by the conscious, like things that you keep in your shadow, that you keep hidden, right? That you don't want to come out into the light. Yeah. And then we have the animus and the anima and the animus. That's just femininity and masculinity, right? So these are our, I guess, our like our primordial drive for a man and our primordial drive for women, right? Um, this is where I'm kind of iffy in Carl Jung's ideas because from what I've seen and from my understanding is that the conditioning that men and women are brought up are different. I agree with that, and that could cause different psyches. But to say that we have different psyches and different maps is kind of where I'm like, I don't, right? Um, I do believe that there's a femininity and there's a masculinity, and then both of these can achieve harmony by intertwining the masculinity and femininity found within us, right? And then we have the self. The self is the almost like the person that we want to be, the person that we want to achieve, right? This could be, for example, Jesus for people, right? People want to be like Jesus. They want to follow Jesus' principles and they want to live a life like Jesus, right? So it's just whoever you believe that you can be the greatest of, right? Um, then that gets us to my mapping of the conscious, which would be the last thing that we are going over. Okay. Um, Oh, actually, before we even go on that, in Freud's when we were talking about Freud, right? We obviously well we have the id. Oh, thank you for not writing. We have the id, we have the ego, we have the superego, right? Just this. Do you find any similarities to anything else that's out there? Any other ideas? The three?
They have to be three. That like three that connect with each other.
No. So this
Mm-hmm.
is one big conscious or big idea that's split into three. Do you know any other ideas that are out there that are split into three? If you don't, then it's fine. It's fine. Just
No, not
no.
off the top of my head. No,
Okay. Do you know what Trinitarianism is?
I haven't heard of it.
Okay. So you know the Trinity, the Holy
Mm-hmm.
Trinity, right?
Yeah.
So that's what it is. It's the study and the idea that there's a Trinity out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to me, the Trinity can be found in a lot of stuff, right? And a lot of things that have to do with psyche. And one thing that I saw it on was Sigmund Freud with the id, the ego, and the superego, right? So it's something that I kind of want to put out there and see if you can also see the connections with me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the id would be the sun, right? The ego would be the Holy Spirit, and then the superego would be the Father, right? So the id being, like we said, the material, the sun being the embodiment of the material God within the material world, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what, well, the Orthodox version of the Bible, right? That's what they show. And then the ego being the Holy Spirit, our connection and what brings us true connection between the id and the superego, right? And Christianity and Catholicism, they teach you that the Holy Spirit is your connection to the greater deity, right? And then the Father, the superego, right? Like I said, our morals, our intellects, our principles developed by our parents. Your parents decide what religion and um what environment you're growing up in, being the father, right? So to me, it's there's a lot of connections between the Trinity and between a lot of modern psychology, and to me, or not to me, but what we're gonna do is kind of towards the end of the units of these is kind of give a great explanation or a final explanation, and what I want to do is give a final explanation, give a final ideology, right?
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, it's just me and you today,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully, we get more people. But if it's just me and you, then me and you are going to create an ideology together, and we're going to present it to the college board for my AP research project. Um, that leaves us to just me mapping my consciousness and how I believe the psyche is mapped out, and then we can get out of here. Right. So we start off with the first triangle. Huh? This is the first, I guess, part of the psyche. So here we have the ego. Oh, and also the definitions I'm gonna give you, they they're the same definitions that Freud and Jung use. Obviously, they believe the ego are a little different, but right now I just want to map it out to you, and then we'll go further into what these definitions on the map mean. Right? I just want to leave this class with just the map, and then we are running a little bit at a time. So this is the ego, right up here, and then we have the personal, right, and then collective. Actually, no, I'm gonna just explain it right now, right? So our personal consciousness, we already know over that. That's our own experience, right? And then the collective consciousness, we share as a community,
Mm-hmm.
right? These all go to our ego. Our ego, we said, is our experience. The thing, the computer that receives everything and exports everything. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then we have the bottom triangle.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Like, is it, let's say I don't believe what anyone else says, is there like a way for me to like not have a collective, like for it just to be personal and not collective?
Okay. The that's where it gets tricky because if you don't have the collective conscious as everyone else, that means you don't believe in gravity. You don't believe
Mm-hmm.
not necessary because then there's like oh like it's going back. I you could say I contradict myself like in the sea like oh we all decided to call it a sea, right? What if I want to
Mm-hmm.
call it something else? But it's not that like such like a force such as gravity. Gravity is present, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we're being there's a force that's putting us down. There's a reason we're not flying, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not there's no not having a collective or personal conscious. They're there. They're there. Okay.
Okay.
And then so this one is split one, two, three. One, two, three. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Hold up. This is the shadow. Right? So actually I'm gonna just put it here. So ego, uh personal conscious and collective conscious. And then the bottom we have shadow, right? um our shadow and our personal conscious they interconnect because the shadow is what we want to keep stored away and
Mm-hmm.
obviously our personal conscious is what we like our own reality, right? So they're connected because they know each other,
Mm-hmm.
but we get to decide what we want to shine and what we don't want to shine, right? Okay. And then next we have in the collective, this is where we have uh the animus, but I'm gonna just call it feminine and masculine
Mm-hmm.
because we don't, it makes them more confusing. So feminine and masculine, right? When I mean feminine and masculine, um, so Jung and Freud believed that it was feminine, masculine, masculine, right? But I have a theory. It's just a theory and something that I want to look into that maybe there's both present within us, right? When I think there's some people that do agree with this, and I probably have to look further into it. But when we go into child development, I would know by then. I would because it's important to what we're gonna learn about child development. Um, right, and then oh right, okay. Actually, this is the persona, right? So these interconnect, right? The persona and the ego interconnect because obviously we said the persona is the mask that you present out there, and it's like a computer program, right? The persona would be the web page, and the ego would be the code.
Mm-hmm.
Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then after that we have the high self or super ego, right? This is your God or whoever you believe God to be, your moral, your ethics, your principle, whatever your basis is. This is what it is, right? The person that you want to become, the person, whatever, etc., etc., right? This level right here is the mind, right? So the mind, obviously, it's like a water. It can go, it like it's not in one specific place, right? It can access the unconscious and the conscious, right? So out here is the conscious, but the physical one. So this is the physical conscious, the things that we observe, the things that we see. And then this is the physical unconscious, right? These are things that we're not aware of, we don't see. So obviously we're in a classroom and outside there's cars driving by or there's a car out there. Like I know there's a car out there because if I go out there, there's gonna be a car, right?
Mm-hmm.
But uh obviously we're not conscious, we're not aware of it in a sense. So until I go outside, I know there's a car there for sure. Okay. Um, and then down here we have the self, right? So the difference between the high self and the self is the self is your true self, like the person that you are, your
Mhm.
actual identity, right? And you might be wondering, well, if it's your actual identity, why is it down here, right? If this is who you identify with, it's because us as humans, we tend to discourage ourselves, right? When we think of our identity, when someone asks you to describe yourself, right, you can be like, oh, um, let's say I describe myself, right? I'm a student. I go to this place, right? I live on this street, right? But then there's also this idea where like you could be better, right? That you could be the high self, right? So to me, it's like no matter what you are as a human, you always want to be a better you, and you want to become a better self, right? I think we're gonna have people come with my food right now. Okay, hungry. Uh,
That took a
Hey,
while.
I know. I'm so sorry.
you guys are late. No, it's okay. I appreciate you guys bringing the food though. I'll just leave it there. Yeah. Um, no, definitely.
It's a lot of
Um,
food.
just some. No, yeah. Any questions? I'll bleep it out. My bad. Any
No.
questions? No.
No.
Okay. Um. Well, that concludes our meeting today. That's the first meeting for today. I think I have addressed everything, right? Um. Oh yeah, one thing I want to go before. You know how we were talking about like the Trinity and all that stuff,
Mm.
right? I have my own Trinity myself. The high, right? I'm gonna put the high self, the mind, and the self. This being the Father, right? The Son. Oh wait, no, I mean this is the Holy Spirit, and then this is the Son, right? Um, Next meeting, development, child analysis. We're gonna go from development from a child to an adult. We're probably gonna touch on that for a couple, like 2, 3 lessons. It's pretty packed. It's pretty interesting as well. Then after those, we'll get into the fun stuff. Um, you said no questions. That's the end of this class.